What's going on, guys? Welcome to March's episode of Plus Club, the show where we play the games offered on PlayStation Plus throughout the month, and at the end of the month, we talk about them. My name's Seth.
I'm Chevy.
Chris is not joining us today. He will give us his opinions on the games we played in March next time he's on the show, so stay tuned for that. Also, we have Game of the Month coming up very soon as well, where he'll be picking his Game of the Month, so hopefully he can make it for that episode. That would be really weird to be like, we don't know what the Game of the Month is. We got to wait. So he'll be back soon, and we will talk to him about these games and Among Us, which is our game of the month. Make sure to play that and come back in a couple days when we talk about that. But yeah, in March we played Final Fantasy VII Remake, Remnant from the Ashes, Maquette, and Farpoint. Well, at least I've played Farpoint, and we'll be talking about that. But quick reminder that we have a Discord link down below. You can talk to us anytime, all the time. We're on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast platforms if you prefer to listen to us. And we have a Patreon link down below if you'd like to support the channel further than liking, commenting, sharing this video, and subscribing if you're brand new. Okay, so we played 3 games this month. Before we jump into Final Fantasy VII Remake, Remnant from the Ashes, and Maquette, you didn't play Farpoint.
Correct.
Probably, I'm assuming. I have played it, and even though I said we're not going to discuss it in full, for anybody who maybe was curious about an opinion on that, I have played Farpoint, and as a VR game, it's pretty fun. The shooting in it is decent enough, but the game does feel like a very, very simple FPS. So if it was just an FPS without being VR, it wouldn't even be on my radar. As a VR game, I think it's serviceable. It was very neat when it first came out. Now we've got games like Half-Life Alyx and stuff. The bar has gone up so much that it's really hard for me to be super impressed with it. But it is a story-based VR game. There's a full game to play there, which is definitely to its credit. That's awesome. I love when games have done that because anyone who's played a lot of VR games knows most of them are like these little experiences, little toys, stuff to kind of interact with. So it's a full game, but it is kind of like just walking forward and shooting things that move. I won't go into the story, but it's a pretty fun VR game. And if you have PSVR, hopefully you got a chance to play it. It's definitely a reason to own the PlayStation VR gun. Mm-hmm. I do have that. It worked very well with it. And if I was going to grade it at this point in VR, kind of feels unfair. I'd probably give it a B-, just because I do appreciate that they have a VR game with a story. It's just like an actual game you can play through. But gameplay-wise, it would not stack up to really anything in modern times if it wasn't a VR game. So gameplay-wise, it's okay. So anyway, with that out of the way, let's talk about the other 3 games. I feel like we should probably talk about Maquette first.
Okay.
If you guys didn't get a chance, Maquette is a story-based kind of narrative, almost like a walking simulator type game, but it's also a puzzle game. It's absolutely a puzzle game mostly, but it kind of has that vibe of like you go through these different parts and there's this narrative that's happening where people are talking to each other. It's a really weird kind of hybrid, but it's absolutely a puzzle game where you have like a center miniature of the place you're at and you interact with that miniature to change your surroundings so you can progress through stages. Do you think that's a pretty good way to describe it?
You said more. I would just call it a puzzle game and call it good. So,
well, it is a puzzle game, but it's a little more than that, though. I found as I played it. We both played it, and I'm dying to know your impressions of Maquette in March.
Okay. So anyone who follows the channel probably has heard this a million times by now.
We love puzzle games around here.
Yeah, not puzzle game fans.
Yeah.
So, having said, my expectations were pretty low. And honestly, it kind of matched that for me. This game is 100% a puzzle game. And if you love that kind of stuff, I'm glad you got your hands on one. The game has...
You got your hands on a puzzle game.
Well, for me, playing the game, I wanted to give it a shot because there's been a couple times we've got puzzle games and I thought they were okay. And I don't hate this game. I want to throw that out there real quick. I don't actually have anything against it other than it's not my speed. So, but you go through, you go through this narrative in the beginning where it teaches you the one of like 2 buttons the game has to offer. And then you go through a door and then you get to the scene where you talked about where you have the miniature and the actual place. And you do a combination of putting things in the puzzle to make smaller or taking them out, make smaller versions, and then putting them back in to make larger versions, and then you can duplicate that process to make even smaller or larger things, and placing them in the right spot to be able to keep progressing, get another little pinch of narrative with a little too much ooey gooey storytelling there. So, and I don't think there's a whole lot more can add to it. It's a decent looking game. So, I mean, I appreciate that, but it was a PS5 only game, I believe. It is pretty simple to play. So, I mean, that's,
I feel like the game could have did a little better in kind of, and once you get it, there's no not getting it anymore. But the game does not really. It starts out kind of with a half-assed tutorial, and then it's absent.
yeah.
And so, like at one point, I was playing it, and I was like, "How do I do this? What am I supposed to fucking do?"
Right.
And it's not even what I'm supposed to do in the sense of like a puzzle, but like I was like, "How do you do this?" And then like I figured it out. I'm like, "Oh!" And then after that, like I wasn't. There's no confusion anymore. But like the game literally, like for a split second, goes, "You can do this and this." And then it's just gone.
Yeah.
It's not even like, you're out of tutorial now. It's just like, bye. And it's like, okay, bye.
Well, and really the puzzles aren't like super complicated either, especially once you understand the gimmick.
Once you get what we're playing with, that starts to make sense. Because there was like the first two puzzles, and then I got kind of confused on one. But when I figured that one out, the puzzles after that, some of them I walked right through.
Yeah.
Instantly. As soon as I saw them, I'm like, oh, this.
Yeah. So yeah, it kind of failed in a lot of ways for me personally, just because like I didn't find it super engaging. The puzzles were based off of one gimmick, so once you had an understanding of that, the puzzle aspect's gone anyways. And after that, it's just a narrative game with a story that honestly I feel is a little forgettable. So it was okay, but I definitely I'm not the right guy. So
yeah. I started out before I played it being apprehensive because I was like, it's a fucking puzzle game. I'm not big on puzzle games. Every once in a while there's one that I like, but this one I was like, yeah, we'll see. And then I started playing it and I hated it instantly. As soon as I started playing, I was like, this is fucking stupid. But then as I played it, I started to kind of appreciate it, which is really interesting. I actually like this game a lot more than I thought I would. Not enough to beat it. Don't get me wrong. That ain't happening. But mostly because the story part I don't like.
Yeah.
And for anybody who played this game and kind of really dug the story, I'm not talking shit. I'm saying for me personally,
Yeah.
I'm not into it. I'm not really into like the kind of like soft-spoken indie, like, oh hey, we were like going out on we're doing this thing, we're on a date, blah blah blah. This doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
But the puzzles I thought were really not. They're clever, but not in like a pull my hair out of my head, I got to figure out this puzzle way. They're clever in the sense of what they're playing with. And I said that earlier. And what I mean by that is there's other puzzle games out there that like play with perspective. You have objects, you change them. And this, I thought it was like that. I actually said that at the beginning of the month. I thought it was a game like that because I saw in the trailer something looked like that. And in a way, it is like that. But it's different because like you get a piece, you put it in this little miniature area at the exact same place you're at, and it enters the real world you're in, but also vice versa, which is really interesting. I actually didn't know you could jump into the miniature and run around in there until I tried it, and I was like, oh, this makes sense. I actually got to about halfway through the second area. I assume you probably didn't even get to the second area.
I didn't, but I did watch Chris play through almost the entire game.
Okay. But how long is it? Do you know?
Not very.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, I was playing. I was like, this feels like it's gonna be like a 4 or 5 hour game.
I feel it's gonna be closer to 2, but yeah. It's pretty short.
I'll have to look up the average play time of it, but that's gonna vary in a game like that because people figure things out differently, different speed. But yeah, I just as an example, if you don't want to hear how to solve one of the puzzles in the game, I'm gonna be vague too. So you probably gotta know which one it is, or you might. But skip like 30 seconds. One of the ones I thought was kind of clever that I couldn't figure out at first, but once I figured it out, I'm like, that's kind of cool, is you unlock this like metal piece that looks like a ticket, and then you can drop it like into the world, and it's huge. And you're like, what the fuck do I do with that? But then when you pick that up and put it into like the small, or when you look on the map and find where it's at, it's actually small, and you can pick that up. And then so it's interesting. Before that, you find like a bridge piece. You put it in there. Now there's a giant bridge. And in your brain, you're like, oh, I got to put the small things in to make the big things. But then you do the ticket and you're like, where the fuck does this go? It's
Yeah.
it's weird shaped. Where does this go? I was like looking at the whole thing. I'm like, what do I do with this? And then reverse engineered that in the sense of like I found a ticket box. You're actually talking with me, telling me like, oh hey, check that thing out. And I did it backwards. Fucking put the piece, looked for it in the small miniature, grabbed the piece, walked over there, put it in the ticket box, and opened up the area.
Right.
And so there's a lot of really interesting things. There's one where you can kind of like look through. It's interesting. There's like this pathway you walk across. You put a bridge down. It's like you take the key, you put it in there on this like gap area, and it forms a bridge in real life. So you run across the bridge, and you can look through this huge hole, and you can see where you were just at before you went in there. This is gonna be confusing for anybody who didn't play the game, but if you did play, you probably know what I'm talking about. You can take the key and you end up putting it in that window you looked through, and it opens something up. It's really interesting. So they have some really clever puzzles. I wasn't
Some
even
like color crystal puzzles later too, where like you can't actually get to both places, but you can set the crystal down inside the puzzle and open the doors.
And so they got a lot of really cool ideas. I wasn't into the puzzle itself. I was into the creativity of what they did with the puzzles. Every time I solved one, I was like, oh, that was actually really neat. That's really neat. But it's a puzzle game. Not really big on puzzle games. The story doesn't do anything for me at all. And every time that happened, I like zoned out. You said you forgot it. I don't even know. I don't think I was even paying attention as it happened. I didn't forget it. It never got in my brain. So it didn't do much for me there. But yeah, overall I liked it more than I thought I would. So that's definitely to its credit. But will I come back to it? Probably not. As I was playing it, I was thinking about other games I wanted to play. I only played it because, for the show, dedication to that. So otherwise, I probably would have never played it. But that's the thing that's great about PlayStation Plus is I get to play games that I typically wouldn't, even look into. So definitely enjoyed checking it out. It was nice playing something like this. I feel like this month kind of had a good range anyway, and we'll talk about that more with the other games. But you got a puzzle game, an RPG, and a shooter. So last year we were kind of complaining about some of the months. You got like two of the same genre games.
Two story games, yeah.
In 1 month. So this year it feels like so far they're doing a better job with that.
Yeah.
And yeah, this was the PS5 game you said?
Yes.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys got a chance to play that. Yeah, all in all, pretty cool. Jump into recommendations unless you have anything else to say. I would recommend it to anybody who is into puzzle games. First off, for sure, it is a puzzle game. If you like figuring things out, if you like scratching your head and going, wait, where does this thing go, what does this thing do, you'll probably dig this game. The thing that I'm surprised by though is if you're into games like everyone went to the Rapture, Dear Esther,
Adventure games.
Just like narrative driven adventure games, walking simulator games, you might dig this as well because it does have a similar vibe to it. It's got really cool locations, really whimsical looking. When you complete the puzzles, you do go on this kind of journey that has this story that's unfolding. A lot of vague wording that I am assuming builds up to something. I don't know. I didn't beat the game. But it has a similar vibe to that. It's not the best I've played, but I thought it was kind of a cool hybrid because this game could have easily just put you in next to that miniature and went figure it out, but there's like a whole thing going on. It's just not for me. If you like quirky games, visually quirky games, I would say check it out maybe. I don't think it's going to be a huge selling point, but it does have a look to it that I found very interesting. A lot of the locations are small. They're little compact areas, but they're kind of creative in the way they did it. One kind of looked like a neighborhood in a cul-de-sac with a house floating above it. That was kind of interesting. Another one's like a castle. One had like all these plants like that. Really cool location. So if you kind of like quirky visual games, you might be into it. I don't know if it's an indie game. I assume it is. If you like indie games, definitely check it out as well. I know people who only play indie games, so that's the reason I'm even throwing that out there. Other than that, I don't know who I would recommend it to because most people I know in real life, I don't think would play this game.
Yeah, I don't know too many either. I think the only thing I would add, and it's just more of like an addition to the adventure game aspect, is if you like those old school ones like Myst, it definitely kind of falls into that category. Longest Journey, etc. So Siberia is what I meant to say.
Yeah.
So
Anything else? Okay, so fuck. I'm gonna give this game a B minus. It's higher than I thought I'd go. I feel like if I gave it a C, it's a little too low. I kind of wanted to give it a C plus, but I think it's better than that because most puzzle games I don't really have too much of an opinion on. I just played them like, whatever. This game though, I kind of really dug a lot of the environmental puzzles. The story stuff does nothing for me, but that's not enough to like put it into a negative for me. It's just I didn't pay attention to it. The core gameplay's still there, the imagination's still there, and that it even made me go from this game's gonna suck to it's not bad. It's kind of interesting. I feel deserves praise. So B minus.
I'm gonna give it a C. It does what it's supposed to do, but it's pretty simple in nature, and it doesn't really have any faults other than like my own personal, distaste for the style of game it is. I also don't think it does a very good job of, like you said, the tutorial aspect or even the storytelling is like if it's in there, but it's just like kind of barely in there. So yeah, it's okay. Yeah, C is fine.
Yeah, fair. Anything else to say on it?
Nope.
All right, let us know in the comments what you guys think of Maquette. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Were you interested in playing if you didn't get a chance to play it? Or is this game you're like, no, I'm not into that kind of game? Do you like puzzle games? What's your favorite puzzle game? And also, do you like adventure games where you walk around, there's like a narrative happening, or old games like Myst? Are you old enough to remember that fucking game? Let us know what you're thinking about in the comments below. The second game we played this month was Remnant from the Ashes, which is a 1-2-3 player third-person Souls-like shooter that is procedurally generated, in which you and up to 2 other people with you go from a hub, go to locations like Earth and then other places that are definitely not Earth. You go through these places, you shoot enemies, you get trait points to level up your skills, you get weapons that will always be in the same location, so it's not like random loot. And it's built up kind of like a Souls game in that sense. And different sections of the map may show up, may not show up in this playthrough or that playthrough. So it's procedurally generated in that sense, not like Minecraft where it's just random shit. And yeah, we both played it. And I'll jump in first when it comes to impressions. So I've talked about this game quite a bit already before this month. I bought and played it when it came out, and I've played it off and on since then. And honestly, it's really cool to return to it because this is a game that I'm always looking for an excuse to play, but it's always kind of hard to coordinate playing it with people. And this is a game that I think definitely benefits when you play with other people. It's fun on its own, in my opinion, but I think it's really fun with people. A lot of fun. It is, definitely inspired by Souls-like games, but it doesn't have the same difficulty to it. But it definitely is trying to do that, and I think it's more fun when you and friends are like struggling and risking your life, stuff like that. Somebody goes down, and you only have like 1 dragon heart left to like get somebody back up, stuff like that. I think it's really a blast. So yeah, pretty much what I did this month is mostly played this on PC, to be honest, and I'm not going to talk about that. But I played it a lot. I think I put like 30 hours into it this month on PC, and on PS4 I played it because that's what we're talking about here. And what I did there was play with you and Chris, which was really cool. We actually beat the whole, and it's not like that big a deal, but we beat the Earth section of the game. We went through all of that. We fought, the bosses that were given to us. We got a lot of the good events that happen. They give you good equipment. Like I said before, I've played this game, so I was looking for specific things. Me and Josh played recently as well, and I kept re-rolling Earth because I'm like, we need this, we need this, we need that. We got the AR from the Monkey Key Room. That was cool on the first run. And we didn't have a whole lot of issues. We kind of just walked through and shot everything and stuff like that.
Minus the last boss of the area.
We went down once with the dragon at the very end.
Due to multiple silly circumstances at the same time.
Yeah. Just like a Souls game, it's sometimes not just a direct result of an enemy being better than you. It's just something didn't go right, and it's a chain reaction, and everything goes awry. But yeah, so I really dig this game. I think it's a really fun shooter. I do prefer it on PC, but on PS4 it plays great. I think the shooting in the game, the mechanics are rewarding. I think the game definitely incentivizes aiming for certain parts of the body, similar to a game like Borderlands, except for you get a more visceral reaction and a visceral reward for hitting those critical points in this game. It's nice that you can put like 4 or 5 rounds into a character or an enemy, or hit them in the critical spot like twice and drop them. It really makes you try and aim for those spots, and it feels really good when you hit them. The aiming is tight, feels really good. The weapons are all interesting, and they only get more interesting as you play further. It's also a game similar to a Souls game that you can like use one of the beginning weapons, keep upgrading that, and it's going to be viable throughout the whole game. So whatever weapon you're feeling, unless there's a couple weapons I think are pretty shit, but most of the weapons in the game, I have a hard time cycling or picking which one I want, because I'm like, oh, this one feels really good. Like I'm still using the hunting rifle. It was my starting weapon with the class I picked, and it's so satisfying. The fire rate, with my build right now, I got like a bunch of stuff that does more damage if I hit them in weak spots, but I also have crit chance increase, so like that gun just really works for me with the amount of damage it does. And even like the original pistol, the pistol just goes pop 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 pop, just the pistol, but it like feels really good, even though the SMG is much better. That's one thing we did as well, as I showed you guys right in the beginning of the game, and I think in the footage here you may see it. I may just release a video showing where that's at. At the very beginning of the game, you can unlock like a really great sidearm. Like right in the, like right in the beginning, you start. There's a key card. You go back to the ward and you can go get that SMG. So I showed you guys that and where to get that early armor. That's always fun. I did that with Josh as well on PC. I was like, and we had been playing already. And then when he came back in my game, I was like, I had the SMG. He's like, oh, is that the Spitfire? I'm like, no. I was like, oh shit. I was like, okay, let's go. And I showed him that. I was like, I'm not using the fucking Spitfire. He loves that gun. Every time I'm like behind an enemy and he's in front of him and I'm like shooting him from behind, he'll like whip out the flamethrower and start blasting the enemy and me. I just get lit on fire. I'm like, Jesus Christ. He's like, oh, I didn't see you. No situational awareness. But yeah, the locations are really cool. I'm sick of playing Earth. Yeah, I've played Earth so many times. In this month alone, I've done it like 7 times, I think. Like I'm ready to keep playing the game. The difficulty does ramp up as soon as you leave Earth too, which is kind of cool, because like I went to the desert area after that and I forgot how much harder it gets there. It also has a really good variety of these random events that happen. So like I said before, kind of like Warframe, it has like a tile set for the layout of the maps, and when you start a new campaign or re-roll the campaign, you can do that anytime. It'll redo the tile set, and sometimes you won't get certain events and sometimes you will. So like there'll be a dungeon where there's like a cultist you can talk to. There's another dungeon where you run into a dude who's going crazy because he's got a mask on his face, and you can try and get the mask from him. All these things. And then in the desert, there's scenarios that are very different, like one where you're just irradiated and you have a time limit before you die and you got to get through the dungeon as fast as possible, but there's a reward at the end. It's this variety that makes the game really fun and rewarding to play, but also satisfying to play over and over again. Like I said, I've re-rolled my campaign on Earth multiple times. I'm playing 2 different saves, and I'm still not bored of this game. It's really fun to play with people. Shooting's great. Action's fun. The enemies are fun, but can be repetitive. And but I guess that's coming from me, the guy who keeps re-rolling his campaign. Because there's plenty of enemies. And another real quick thing I wanted to touch on is I bought the DLCs for both PS4 and PC, so I'm going to talk about it on PS4 just a little bit. This did not come with the game, but just to kind of throw it out there, I think it's still on sale for $6. Both DLCs are $6 a piece on PS4, and I beat Subject 2492 or something like that. I forgot what the number is. And it was a lot of fun. A lot of new weapons there, 6 new weapons, like 8 bosses or whatever. and I would definitely recommend picking that up if you are curious about it. The other one just has like a survival mode. So if you want that, it's like a roguelike because you start out with nothing, you progress, and as you run through, you find the traits that when you die and restart the roguelike survival mode, you don't have the traits anymore. So it's kind of neat on paper, but I mean, Josh weren't feeling when we were playing at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those modes are probably like the least exciting for me in games anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. It felt tacked on, but then the one that's not that, the subject, whatever, that one's worth it. Especially if you can get it on sale for $6. It's a whole new area, new weapons, new ways to play, new bosses. And those bosses are some of the best bosses in the game I've played against so far. So that's absolutely worth it. I hope they continue to support the game like that because it's a really good DLC and very fairly priced. But, you know, it's not a full expansion, but it is a whole new section. Only thrown out there in case somebody's curious about that. I feel like I should let you guys know. And yeah, I'm a big fan of this game. I really enjoy playing it. I've been having a blast playing it like all month. I've pretty much only played this game all month. So, yeah, I had a good time playing it on 2 different setups.
Yeah. I only played it on console, and I only played it the one night with you and Chris, but we did play quite a bit that night, so I feel like I got a pretty good idea, minus like, you know, the entirety of the range of enemies and later weapons and stuff. But so the one thing I will say about the game on console is it plays very well. I ended up picking the weapon you were using on PC, which I believe is the hunting rifle.
Yeah.
And I did like it a lot, but the whole time I did kind of wish I had a mouse. But it wasn't too bad.
You said like 4 times, you're like, I wish I had a mouse and keyboard. I'm like, you should buy it for PC.
It's just kind of rough when you use an accuracy weapon like that on console because you have to really rely on strafing.
Sniper rifle's even worse. In fact, just not to just interrupt, but like when I was playing on PC, it's like not... It's the difficulty is completely different. I should just start on hard over there. Because like I shoot people before they ever get near me, and they're done. And on PS4, I'm actually like dodging and rolling and trying to like get away from people and stuff like that. It's a completely different experience just because my aim with the mouse is so much faster, especially in that game. It has very tight aiming. And it feels great on PS4, but because of, you know, I can't use high-powered precision weapons like I do on PC. So I'm having to unload into people with machine guns and shit.
Yeah, well, so what I ended up having to do a lot of times was I would just like try to start aiming way ahead of time. I like if I saw up the road there was someone, I would just try to pop some shots off at him as you guys were rushing at him. And if someone did get close, I'd switch my pistol real quick and just unload as fast as I could into him, which does work, and the pistol is viable. So they did a good job in that regard. Because a lot of times you when you play an accuracy character in games and they give you a pistol, the pistol is just there. It might as well not be.
There's so many games, like 95% of all games, if there's a pistol, they're like, that's a sidearm in case you're out of ammo and you need a gun. I'm like, that never happens.
Yeah.
I'm never going to need this.
Yeah.
Like, make it a viable weapon. And this game does do that, for sure.
Yeah, the only other example I can think of would be like Battlefield.
Yeah.
Because it's fast and reloading. It won't
Any
kill
realistic
people.
shooter
Yeah.
typically makes pistols viable, but then, again, you know, some kind of assault rifle is going to be more viable because they'll probably drop you in one shot and it has that full auto, but yeah.
Yeah, one, I'm just referring to like if you have a sniper rifle or a slower like accuracy-based weapon, the pistol is actually viable in this game, similar to a game like Battlefield versus like I've like played other games where the pistol might as well not exist because the damage output just is garbage.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Outclassed by everything.
Yeah. I do also appreciate that the game does have other options for your sidearm. I do think it's a little boring when games only give you pistols as that option. I do like when games are like, a submachine gun is also a tiny weapon. You can use that. A sawed-off shotgun is also a tiny weapon. You can use that. Stuff like that I like. So.
Yeah, I just got a pistol on the PC version that is essentially a rifle. It shoots once, you have to reload, though.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so and I like that kind of stuff because your secondary weapon should also be fun to use so that you can change it up, or if in the moment you do need a ranged, you know, or a more powerful weapon, even having that option of being like spray and pray with your main weapon and then your secondary being like a powerful just boom weapon is also fun sometimes. So and the game embraces that, and I really appreciate that. You mentioned earlier this game is better with people. I would 100% agree with that. Even just playing it with you guys, I could tell right away I will never play the game by myself. Won't happen. But playing, not even just with one person, but with two extra people, even when I was getting frustrated at certain parts of it, it wasn't to the point where I was like getting upset at the game as much as just like I was having a bad moment, but I was having a good time because I was playing with you guys. So, and I think a good example of that was I think one of the first or second boss was not going my way, but because we were able to just do it as a group, I didn't feel so useless. So
one thing on that too is the way they do multiplayer in Souls games is fun and fine. I don't think of Souls games as multiplayer games. Even though you can do it, I don't think of them like that.
For sure.
And so like there's that gimmick to get somebody in your game. I really like that this game just has no bullshit multiplayer.
Yeah.
You just fucking send an invite or someone joins your game if you have set up for like friends or whatever, and you can just play together. There's no rules, no stipulations. The only thing is if somebody goes down, you have these things called dragon hearts. They heal you. You have a limited amount until you go to a bonfire, essentially a checkpoint, and you can use those to get people up. So the more you have to get people up, the more it's going to get hard for people because you have less dragon hearts to survive with.
For sure.
And just thinking about us fighting the bosses together, it's cool because you get that experience in other games like Nioh and Dark Souls, stuff like that. But it's cool to just be able to play, go to the boss, have that feeling of conquering the boss together with friends and just continuing playing.
Yeah.
Like you play the whole fucking game, just multiplayer. And it's awesome. Like I just appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, well, and I think a good way to like also kind of compare that is like me and you played Code Vein for a little bit, and I had a lot of fun playing that co-op.
Yeah.
But it is traditional in the sense of you have to join someone's game, but someone had to have already beaten it, and once you beat a boss, you get kicked out, and it's just frustrating. It makes co-op.
Well,
such
its
a pain in the
system was
ass.
weird because people couldn't play levels that they weren't on.
Yeah.
It's not the same as Neo 2. Because Neo 2, you have to have beaten it to play with somebody else.
Right.
Whereas in Code Vein, we had to be on the same level. So our system was we beat it on mine, and then we beat it on yours, and then we go to the next one. We beat it on mine, we beat it on yours.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, you
So
weren't allowed to replay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like we were like essentially grinding to get through both of our levels, but we're able to progress like that. Whereas like in a game like Neo, somebody has to have like theoretically beaten the game to come back and help you play, and I kind of fucking hate that.
Yeah, the difficulty's gone then.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like do the thing like Code Vein or something, but I hate that system of like, yeah, you can play with somebody, but you need to have beaten those levels. I'm like, well, where's the fun and challenge in that? I feel like I'm just escorting someone through the game then.
Well, and without going down this too far, I did really enjoy. I think it's Demon Souls actually, and I don't know if it's the same in the remake, but in the original, there's just points in the game you were allowed to summon help, and someone had to be waiting at that point. So like, if you're both there, you could just.
It still takes an item or something like that.
There was a resource, sure, but like there was no like I had to have beaten this or whatever type of thing to it.
Yeah.
You could just do it. So, anyways, that being said, for the most part, I mean, I enjoyed myself. I don't necessarily have like a fondness for like the aesthetic or anything like that, and I don't have any issues with it either. It just doesn't really stand out to me. But for the most part, I had more fun than not. I had a couple of times where I had frustrations, but I do think those were more in part either to just luck of the draw with the scenario I was in at the time, or we did play this after work. Like, it makes it kind of hard because I come home tired. It's really hard for me to be in. Like,
we're filming this after work too.
Yes.
It affects everything.
Yeah, so there's a serious energy drain there, and it makes it kind of difficult. But yeah, I mean, I had a good time, and I think it was a pretty good get to get this month, because a lot of times when we get a game, specifically a shooter, I play them, but I don't play them a lot. So
this has a slightly different vibe than just like a shooter though, just because like the unique weapons you're finding, the secrets, which is something I didn't touch on, and the combat's challenging. It kind of feels like an RPG because you're getting trait points.
It does,
like that.
yeah.
So yeah, I do appreciate that it wasn't just like another like shooter.
Yeah,
and I'm a guy who likes shooters.
And I agree with that. This is gonna be kind of a weird comparison, but also like, Outriders is coming out soon.
Yeah,
kind of a similar vibe in that regard, minus the gameplay loop. But yeah,
I played Outriders and then I wanted to play Remnant because I didn't have Outriders to play.
Yeah,
they're not the same, but they kind of have a similar vibe to them.
I think they kind of scratch a similar itch.
Yeah,
so
just Outriders is a little closer to Gears of War in the sense of like how you fight stuff, whereas in Remnant, it's a little more Dark Souls in the sense that if you make one misstep, someone can combo you and kill you. If you're playing against things that you should be playing against, my character, they're not fucking killing.
Well, and it uses the bonfire and the Estus system and stuff like that.
There's a pacing to it I really dig. And also, just to say one more time, I really, really like the shooting in the game. It's really tight. It feels really good.
I didn't play it on PC, but on the controller it felt fine. So
yeah,
if you're used to playing these kind of games on a controller, I'm sure it feels good. So
yeah. Even hopping between the two, I had to like kind of get used to playing on controller. But once I did, it works great.
Every time I try to play Destiny on my PlayStation, I'm like, oh god, I forgot how to aim.
After playing Destiny 2 on PC, I don't want to play it anywhere else. No. That's another game. We were talking about that before. Some games just really... a lot of games feel great on PC. I would argue you could play it in control, of course, but on mouse and keyboard, some games do not play good on mouse and keyboard. But shooters, typically, unless an Ubisoft game has a weird floaty feeling, typically play better. But some games play really fucking good on PC. Like, they're just so fine-tuned in their sensitivity and stuff like that. And you can, of course, adjust that in a lot of games, but some games just nail it. And like Remnant is one of those games, and Destiny is one of those games. I play a game like the difficulty has changed because like the mouse and keyboard feel is just so good.
Yeah,
that I feel way more in control of the situation. One last thing I want to talk about real quick before we go into recommendations is the secrets system. So it has something that kind of like similar to Dark Souls games. You can talk to an NPC, and if you talk to them long enough, they might give you something. This game has a lot of really cool little things like that. So, like, there's this dude. I'm about to just give you guys a bunch of secrets. There's a dude named, like, Mudtooth or something like that. He's up in an airplane. This dude just talks. And he's really annoying. And you're just like... And I remember when I originally played, I was like, shut the fuck up. And, like, he's a vendor. You check out a shop. He sells bullshit. But if you listen to a story, and it takes forever, you listen to a story for long enough, it's kind of like bittersweet. He's like, oh, I'm going to give you this ring. He's like, I was going to give it to my son, but, well, he never showed up. And he's like, it's yours now. And you get a fucking item out of it. And it's a really good item at that point in the game. And when I found that out, I'm like, that's fucking dope. I didn't know this guy gave you shit. The cultists I talked about earlier, you can go in there and there's like these two hearts. They're inside like rut. And then there's a cultist at the end. And a lot of people see these things and go, oh, I'm going to shoot those. You shoot them, you destroy them. When you find the cultist, he's pissed. He just attacks you. If you find him first and don't shoot the hearts, he essentially tells you, like, oh, isn't the rut great? Blah, 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 blah. And you go, uh-huh. And he's like, here. And he gives you something. And you're like, oh, cool. Then you go destroy the hearts. And when you go talk to him again, he's pissed. You kill him, you get another item. You get 2 items for this dude.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of scenarios in this game where there's even, like, random, and it's a unique weapon or item on a unique dead NPC, and it might spawn and it might not. But like just in an alleyway, there's like a dead body that will spawn sometimes, and there's a ring on him. It's these kind of things that like it's really fun when you find them because it's not randomized loot. It's like unique items. You find it, you're like, oh shit, I finally have this piece, or because there's like set bonuses and stuff like that. And it's really exciting, but it's also fun when you're playing with friends and like they didn't know about something. You're like, oh, let me show you. Let's see if we find it. And it has this cool unraveling mystery element to it that I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Let's jump into recommendations.
Okay.
I'm gonna throw some out there because I honestly, before this came out on PlayStation Plus, wanted everybody to play it. So I would recommend it to everybody in the sense that this game deserves attention. It kind of came out and I only kind of heard about it. I picked it up because I'm that kind of person, but a lot of people probably looked over it. I know when we started playing, you and Chris kind of didn't even know what kind of game it was fully. I started explaining.
I didn't know what it was at all.
Yeah. Well, Chris didn't either. So as we were playing it, I like was listening to Chris, and he was kind of going like, "Oh, okay." Like he was actually like, I could tell he was like interested in things that were going on in the game. So like,
Well, he likes Souls games too, so
yeah,
that yeah.
So it in that sense, I'm like, more people would have dug this game. They just didn't play because it's not a AAA game, and I only saw it on Steam because it was recommended to me. So lightly, I would recommend it to most people. But if you're a Soulsborne fan, anything that touches that genre, play it. It's not as difficult as those games, but it does take a lot of really cool ideas from them, and I think you'll appreciate it. If you like shooters, play it. If you like third-person shooters, play it. If you like first-person shooters, it's not first-person, but it plays very good as a shooter, play it. If you like games that have melee combat, play it. It's not super strong in that regard, but it does have items that give you ways to play with melee combat. If you like games with boss fights, ones that you feel like you're conquering that boss, when you beat him, you're like, whew, we did it. Play this game. If you like games that have random spawns of like locations and items, stuff like that, play this game. If you like games like Left 4 Dead, play this game because it has a system where it will spawn like little mini bosses and stuff if you're going through the game too quick. It's always different when you play the game.
Actually, to touch on that real quick, we were running through so quickly that it threw
like
like
3 dudes or something.
I was gonna say like 6 or 7 mini bosses in a
might have
row.
been.
It was ridiculous. I was just like, stop.
Yeah.
So
I feel like games where you like are finding secrets. You like legitimately you go down a thing and you're like, oh shit, this thing's here. Play this. One thing I also want to throw out there too. I don't think every game needs to do this, but I love that this game does it. If I open a chest and grab stuff in there, everyone just gets it.
oh yeah.
Whoever's playing with you just gets the item. If there's scrap, which is currency in the game, and I just run around and pick it up, if somebody else I'm playing with grabs that scrap, I just shows on the left side of my screen I'm getting scrap. If someone finds a unique item, once they grab it, it just shows up on my screen. It says you got this item. If you find a trait tome or whatever, knowledge tome, which gives you a trait point, when someone grabs that, it just shows up and says you got it now. And like I said, certain games would break immersion if it's like that. But that you can just hop into multiplayer with people in this game and not have to worry about someone, getting into a chest and grabbing everything, or if it was instanced, having to like spend time running over there. Oh, where are you at? Oh, I'm over here. I'm upstairs. Where at? Upstairs to the left. Oh, okay. And then you have to go in there and grab the shit too. It just takes all that out, and it's all about the combat.
Yeah, I think the reason it works so well in this game is because the items are set items.
Yeah.
Versus like in a game like, I don't know, Diablo, Torchlight, whatever, stats are randomized.
Yeah.
That makes more sense to be like individual loot.
Yeah.
Versus like shared loot, like this is. And when you do have a game with shared loot, there's nothing more frustrating than when people can just go snag it from you. So it is good that they just go, we can just avoid that. Someone touches it, everyone gets it. And I do think it's a better system. So
Yeah, and like I said, not every game needs it, but this game has it, and I think it benefits the game.
Yeah.
Also, there's no penalty from dying. It's just, hey, you got to try it again.
Yeah.
Which is just, again, this game is about the combat and the gameplay. That's it. But yeah, I could go on and on about recommendations. I don't think everybody will love this game, but I think a lot of people who might not have even checked it out will like this game. I want more people to play this game and support this game in some way if you like it, because I would love a Remnant too. I might be showing my cards here a bit on my grade, but I really dig this game, and I really hope they've made enough to make a sequel, because I think even though it is short in some departments, storytelling, even though they do, I didn't even touch on that either. They try with some of the cinematics pretty decently, but it's not compelling in my opinion enough for me to care about the story more than like the gameplay, I guess. But they did put the effort in for sure. I won't dock it for that. But I would like a second game. So hopefully they did well with this game enough to release it on PlayStation Plus, or at least maybe they're just trying to get DLC sales. I don't know. But anyway, I would recommend to most people.
Yeah. I think the only thing you didn't mention that I think is kind of a necessary recommendation is if you look for a co-op game.
Yeah.
It is
No bullshit co-op.
definitely a game that is better with friends. Not to say you can't play with yourself. You've done it. But I do think the game definitely handles co-op very well by doing no BS everything, no BS loot, no BS multiplayer. The penalties are very minimal. So you can just like sit down, play a game with your friends, regardless of their skill level and the type of game, and still have a good time, I think. So
Yeah, for sure. Did I grade first last time?
yes.
So I'm gonna let you grade it unless you have more recommendations.
No.
Okay.
So I'm gonna give it a B plus. I think it is a fun game. I do think I would enjoy it more on PC. That's just personal preference. Obviously, the game plays perfectly fine on console, and if you got it for PlayStation Plus and you haven't played it yet, you should definitely give it a shot because it is worth playing. If you have two, one or two, it's 3-player or 4-player?
3-player.
Co-op. So it has 3-player co-op. So if you got two buddies, it's a lot of fun playing it that way. We played it 3-player. It was still fun. Things didn't just instantly die. You still had to fight things. It wasn't like super hard, but I also don't feel like we were just slapping everything to death either. We still had to like shoot at them and like be somewhat decent at it. Fortunately, I feel like the three of us are pretty competent enough to where obviously we were walking through a lot of it, but that boss kind of stopped us in our tracks for a moment too. So
What is worth mentioning as well that there are difficulty levels, and if you reroll your campaign at any time, which you can do from the hub, Ward 13, you can go and you can reroll the campaign. You can change the difficulty, and I think there's like 3 or 4 difficulties above normal. So
I also
if
think
the game
it's
is too easy, you could just do that at any time.
Yeah, I also think it's worth mentioning too that you had already played through the game a couple times at that point. So part of the challenge being like, I don't know what I'm doing was gone.
Yeah.
So we pretty much got to play follow the leader, which for me is fine, but for some people,
Yeah, I was like, oh, look over here. Oh, we're looking for this thing. Oh, this dungeon. We got to do this, and this.
Yeah, and for me, like unless I'm like super invested in like the challenge, which is almost never a thing for me. I don't mind. I'm just like hanging out with my buddies. So.
Yeah, in a lot of games, I don't like too much information given to me because I want to go in and be surprised. But in a game with like unique items like this, I don't want to like miss out on them. So I was like progressing with us, and I was like, you guys need this gun. Yeah. And like I'd go show you where it's at.
Yeah, and I generally, like I said, I don't really care about difficulty too much. I think the only time I really cared at all in recent history was probably Ghost of Tsushima, just because the combat feels just so good in that game. But outside of that, I just want to play a video game. So
see the dude. This is in Tastecast. We see the dude who made John Wick is making a Ghost of Tsushima movie.
I have conflicting feelings about that one.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Maybe we can talk about that on a different episode. Yeah. Anything else?
No.
I'm gonna give it A minus. It's a very solid game. I very much enjoy it. I like the aesthetic of it. I think the story is interesting enough. It's post-apocalyptic shit, but it's interesting enough. Combat is awesome. Multiplayer is awesome. Most of the weapons are viable and awesome. The abilities are awesome. Something I didn't touch on. There are abilities in the game. The trait point system is awesome. Another thing I didn't touch on too is traits kind of unravel as you play the game. So if you do something enough, you'll unlock traits so you can level up 20 times. If you kill 100 enemies per weapon with 10 different weapons, you unlock a trait, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. There's just so much about this game I really, really dig, and I think it's an awesome game. I think it's really fun. I think the music's decent. I mean, I think that there's not a whole lot of weaknesses with it outside of that it, could have had a higher budget maybe, but the game's still super clean looking. The graphics are good. I thought it looked good on PS4.
I don't think I have any like real complaints. It just does. I don't think it's also. It's not like outstanding either.
Sure. So, no, I agree. Every time I played it before this, I'd go play something else because I'm like, I'll come back to this at some point. I have, and when I play it, I enjoy it. But yeah, there's nothing about it that's like insanely like amazing. But the game across the board, like I don't have complaints about it. And I really enjoy playing it, and I think it excels in the way guns feel in the combat. I think it feels great, and I also like that they had the balls to make a Souls-like game with guns. That's difficult. How do you make a game like that hard with guns? Unless it's like, I guess, Doom. But because that's a game that tries to be difficult as a first-person shooter. Otherwise, you got to crank that difficulty in like Halo and have it on Legendary. But anyway, I digress. Overall, I really dig the game a lot. I would maybe go higher than A minus, but I'll wait until they make a sequel. Maybe I'll get a chance to go A or A plus on that one. But really great game. Recommend it to everybody, and it's awesome and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments, unless you have anything else to say.
No.
What'd you think of Remnant from the Ashes? Did you play it? Did you not play it? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you want to play it? If you didn't get a chance to play it for some reason, definitely check it out. Download it. It's free right now still. And yeah, what do you like about it? What do you not like about it? And what kind of character did you build? I think you were kind of going for like a long range crit build. I was going for weak point damage.
I tend to prefer support builds.
So. And I go for mobility. I need stamina to roll around a lot. So yeah, let us know what you're kind of doing in that game and what you typically play in games. Let us know what you're thinking about in the comments below. Last game we played, and we're already 52 minutes into this, is Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yes.
If you didn't get a chance to play that and you don't know what that is, it is a remake from the ground up of the legendary game Final Fantasy VII. If you don't know what that is, I don't know where you've been, but like honestly, like if there's any of the famous games ever, it's one of them. Like it's one of the most famous games ever made. I don't even know if I should give a synopsis. Like how do you? It's a JRPG, and
I mean it's a Final Fantasy story. You play as a hero who has to save the world. So
yeah, okay. It's since it's a remake, this is not a traditional turn-based JRPG. It is an action-based JRPG that has some turn-based-ish mechanics, like being able to go into menus and kind of slow down the game dramatically to decide things. You can swap between characters,
like Dragon Age and stuff.
Yeah. You can swap between characters at any time, whoever's in your party. Materia system's back, so you can equip materia into your weapons to change properties. Very story-centric game. Yes. And a lot of crazy visual stuff going on, as per usual with Final Fantasy in general, but also just Square Enix games. We both played it. And, we'll go with your impressions first. Okay. And, of course, let people know that you've beaten it pretty much. Before this.
If you saw our Game of the Year episode, you've probably already seen our opinions on this game. Yours may have adjusted a little bit because you still have game to play there.
Yeah.
I had beaten it by that time. Nothing's changed, obviously, since then. I literally turned it on, did a couple side things that I had neglected, like getting people's level 2 limit breaks and stuff like that. And that was it. I didn't put a lot of time into it just because I don't really have a lot left to do in the game. So, that being said, this game is really, really good, and I'm really happy to be able to say that because there was a time where if Square would have said they were making a remake of this game, I would have been like, don't touch it.
There was a time. Yeah. There was rumors for years and years and years that they're like, they're saving it. It's like their trump card. Like, are they going to use it? I'm like, not right now. Don't make it. You guys are making shit.
Unfortunately, by the time they announced it, they were getting past their arrogant phase and getting back into the we need to make good products phase. So, and they're thriving right now, and I really look forward to the games they make.
Them, Capcom, somebody else.
Capcom just loosened up on their streaming stuff too, so crazy. So yeah, that being said, you kind of touched up on one part of it. The game's beautiful. It's a Square Enix game, and it's their flagship series. So
it's their flagship of the flagships.
Yeah. So like, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Like every aspect of it. It's it has some loading things sometimes, but that's just console holding it back essentially. It's a really good looking game. They did such an amazing job of bringing the PlayStation 1 game to the modern era, and it still feels like you're in the same place.
They did an incredible job on translating. Anybody who's
camera angles and set pieces to a 3D
anybody
space.
Who's a fan of the original Final Fantasy VII in some way, even if you might have not liked this for some reason, I think you still appreciate how authentic it feels.
Yeah, it's super realized.
Yeah, this isn't like a one-off, just kind of fuck around, find out if it's gonna sell or not. Like there's a lot of fucking passion in this.
What else? The The voice acting is really good, which I appreciate. The only voice actor I don't like, without getting too spoilery about the game, is a certain villain that is very
Sephios?
is very famous in the game. His English voice actor does not fit, in my opinion, at all.
Because he talks like this. Hello, Cloud.
Yeah, it's really bad, which sucks because everyone else is really good.
Yeah, they did a good job.
Yeah.
That's becoming more and more a thing, though, which is nice.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it'd be a sin to not mention the music in Final Fantasy.
It is incredible.
It is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Still gives me goosebumps, especially the title screen, or not the title screen. What's that
The
called?
intro sequence.
Yeah, where the title shows
Yeah.
up. That'll never not give me goosebumps.
Yeah.
It is so good. It's so perfectly timed.
I was around just doing mundane bullshit, and I was listening to music that I recognized from back in the day, and I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, man, they have a great assortment of people who do music at Square, and I hope that never changes because it's
God, even their games aren't that great. The fucking music's great. They don't fuck around on that. They don't fuck around on three things. It's typically CGI, music, and particle effects.
Oh yeah,
That's what Square Enix
they like
does.
flashy.
Yeah, every game is just lights everywhere and shit. I'm like, okay.
So then to move into like the combat aspect of it, obviously for some people this is not the direction they wanted it to go, and whether they gave it a shot or they didn't give it a shot, it may not be their thing. For me, the original game still exists. I can still go back and play that. I probably still would go back and play that. I love that game. This is a different game, and I do think
they feel they feel so attached, but also so independent. I don't think either game takes anything from the other one. So like, if you prefer the way Final Fantasy VII played, that game is still like its own fantastic, great, and playable game in 2021. Whereas this game is way more than an homage, but it's its own game as well, just telling that story in a different way with different gameplay that's modern.
No, and I 100% agree with that. They also made characters feel like individual combat styles, which is really awesome. They toyed around with that up a little bit in Final Fantasy 15, especially with the DLCs. This is a much more realized version of that, and it's great. Barrett's playstyle, Tifa's playstyle, Aerith's playstyle, and Cloud's playstyle are all completely different, and it's really easy to kind of fall into like which one's your favorite. And they have different like things they're good at. I actually found myself playing Barrett a lot through my playthrough because he's the tank essentially. He can just take rounds.
I think they do a really good job of also kind of giving you a reason to switch characters because they're all different feeling.
What if a boss like runs away and they're on the wall? You can't swing a sword at them.
Exactly.
So you can cast spells or you can switch to Barrett and being able to, like, for me at least, put like taunts on him, defensive spells and stuff like that. And then I could just issue commands to people. They'd essentially murder him while I just sat there as an immovable object. It was really neat to be able to play around with that. The materia system, I'm glad they kept it because they could have very easily been like, well, we don't want to do that this time. They kept it, and they made it this whole system with choices that you get to make, whether you want hit points or attack or life or whatever. I already said hit points. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. But you kind of get the point. You get to like pick and choose like what attributes you want for each character, in their in the weapon system, and then you get to add materia on top of that. And they added new materia that doesn't exist in the other game because it is an action game, so it gave them the ability to have different types of materia. And I think it worked out really well in that regard. If I have a nitpick about the game, they do stray from the original story. And so the game battles with my nostalgia a lot. It's not the game's fault.
It's an interesting topic because just to be transparent, I haven't beaten this. I think I'm on like chapter 7, so I'm not that far into it. But already I've seen quite a bit of things that are different. And one thing I like about it is their surprises. Some of the stuff is light enough too that I kind of like it because it just kind of fluffs up the story and gives you more to chew on.
Yeah.
And then some of the stuff is like very different. And and even where I'm at, it's like that. And I don't dislike it. It's just like I said, a positive to it is I'm like, whoa, this is different. This is kind of interesting. But I don't know how much that's going to change stuff. But at the same time, a negative to that is like there is an expectation of this story, and it does make me go, well, if they're changing this much, how much is it going to change the outcome of where the story arc goes in later iterations of this game as it progresses? I don't know because I haven't gotten there yet, but it is something I think about when I play it. When those ghost things are flying around and shit.
Yeah. Yes, I think my biggest nitpick, without spoiling anything, because you haven't beaten it, and just in case you haven't beaten it, because it did just come out this month and it's a big game. But they lean a lot on Advent Children, and I think it's a little weird. I like that it's included because it should be. It's part of the world. I like that they lean on it hard.
I really like that Advent Children has been treated like canon ever since that movie. Like when people are like, "There's no good video game movies," I'm like, Advent Children.
Yeah.
That's a good video game movie. I fucking love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also canon. Like it's not just like a fun little like one-off thing of like, look what they get into in this one, guys. It's like legit canon. It's post Final Fantasy VII. And so I do think it does. I think it is a good thing to bridge those things with this game. They have an opportunity to do that. But when you're saying they might be doing it too much, I haven't gotten to that point, but it does make me go like, well, you definitely could lean into that too far and maybe muddy. You're kind of rewriting things at this point then if you're trying to really make it fit, or lean into it too much in the sense of like, they had some ideas over there and it might change everything here now.
Yeah.
And so it is concerning to hear you say that because, I mean, you're a huge Final Fantasy fan, you're a huge Final Fantasy VII fan, so you're not going to say that lightly.
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, the game like battles with my nostalgia a lot. So like, I'm not saying necessarily it's wrong, but so far, from what I've seen, I think the next game is really going to shift, or really kind of solidify any opinion I have, because I'm kind of in a weird like loose place right now mentally with this game.
Without saying anything about it, how do you feel about the ending? People who have beaten it are probably going to want to know.
I think the next game is going to dictate that for me 100%. Because my nostalgia screams at me like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong.
It's a sin.
But I'm also like, there's a vision here they're going for.
What if they do something?
If the journey ends in the same spot,
I feel like that's what they're going to do.
The journey can be different. And so I'm trying to be okay with it. So
what if it goes in a different direction in some ways and it's better?
Would that be great?
You'd accept a new
I'm fine with that.
route that's satisfying?
Well, and I already brought this up earlier, but Final Fantasy VII exists.
Yeah.
Right?
That's something people get really weird about. I'm like, dude, it's still around. Play it.
I can go play that game and have that experience still.
And it's done. It's complete.
And it's on sale still. I can buy it on my PS5 if I want to, or on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
So
you
like,
can get it anywhere.
Yeah, it's not gone. So I can still play that game.
It's like when they reboot like movies and stuff. You're like, like I agree. I think the state of Hollywood is complete garbage and has been forever, but for a long time, I think it's awful. But when they reboot movies, you're like, man, I'm like, don't watch it.
Yeah.
Watch the original. If you like the original so much, don't watch that shit, or watch it. Maybe you'll like it, or watch it and you won't like it. But the original's still fucking there. Just go watch that.
Yeah.
It's like when they talk about making a Silent Hill movie, or not Silent Hill, when they did talk about Silent Hill, but then like when they talk about Uncharted or like Last of Us, I'm like, try it out, see what happens.
Yeah.
But you don't need it because those are fucking movies, and they're
sure.
better than the movie's going to be most likely. So yeah, people get really weird about that kind of thing. And Final Fantasy VII, if you don't like where it went or whatever, it kind of sucks because there's the potential of what they did financially, what they did, passionately with this developer making this experience. And if they don't nail it, it does feel like, oh man, that kind of sucks. But at the same time, you love Final Fantasy VII that much, it's still there. You can still play it.
Yeah.
Nothing changes.
100%. So that being said, since we're talking about this one though, and because I obviously I need to pass the ball to you.
Yeah. I'm not gonna have as much to say because I haven't beaten it, but
My overall experience is positive. I'm just emphasizing concerns I have because I do think with the risks they're taking with the storytelling, they have to nail it. Because right now I'm feeling cautious.
feeling uneasy on these uncharted waters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So because I do have an expectation, unfortunately. So
Oh yeah, I feel like they're gonna nail all the major beats of the story though.
yeah,
I'm not gonna go into those even though that game's been out forever. But like certain deaths, certain character arcs, stuff like that. I think they're gonna still find a route to those. I've already played a couple parts that are just filler. It feels like anime filler, but I love it because it's giving me more character development,
world building.
Yeah, and I really, really dig it. It does feel extra as fuck for sure. Like there's like I'm like, what is all this? But I like it. It's fleshing out the story. But
It feels like a video game when they do that too.
yeah,
So.
yeah, for sure. They definitely still keep it feeling kind of like fun and gamey and stuff like that. But I do worry like doing that too much. If you start touching like major story beats, it could be like, whoa, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? So, but I don't know. So like I said, I'm not as far as I thought I was. I booted up the game and I was like, I completely lied. I didn't even, not on purpose. I play a lot of games, so I got confused with another game on how far I was into it. So, anything else?
No, it's a huge get. I would say that this month in general was
amazing.
Big gets,
yeah,
so.
I mean, if you're bitching about what PlayStation Plus gives, I think this month has been a really good month. But I think Final Fantasy VII being one of the games is like, I mean, maybe you're not into it, and that's fair. Yeah. But maybe you're one of those people that when people are like, oh man, we're getting fucking FIFA or whatever, they're like, I like FIFA. To each their own. But it's a big game, and I think it's kind of crazy they gave it out. Yeah. While still going, oh, if you want to upgrade to the PS5 version, you got to go buy it still.
That was a weird decision.
It's an interesting one. Yeah. I get it, but it's interesting, especially announcing that when you just released it on PlayStation Plus. It's like, you can have this, but you can fucking buy that shit still, though. It's really interesting.
It is interesting. I
don't have a hard opinion. I just think it's funny timing.
Yeah, Square, if there's one thing they've always been kind of weird about, it's
having a website that works well.
Yeah, I suppose so. They're really weird about like license ownership. So
yeah, I think it's a lot of Japanese companies though.
Yeah,
there's like different rules over there with certain things. Like when it comes to like
too many layers,
putting videos up with stuff from their videos, they're like, nope, take that down. It's like it's fair use. So I'm gonna jump in. I'm not gonna talk as much about it. I'm just gonna talk about the things that I've kind of experienced so far. We've already kind of gushed about this already. I love Final Fantasy VII. It is my favorite Final Fantasy, although I really liked 15 a lot too, which was surprising. And really great villain in that one too. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII, amazing. So, of course, we were hyped going into this game when it was coming out. Played it then. I didn't beat it because I play so many games. It's easy for me to fall out of games, and I try and return to stuff and stuff like that. So it was cool to return to it this month and play it. And as soon as I start playing, hear the music, goosebumps, fucking love it. It's a goddamn spiritual experience for me hearing the music of Final Fantasy VII, especially the way they've redone it in this like amazing orchestral, legit modern sound. Sounds the same, but also just sounds so enhanced because they redid it all. And some of the songs they've kind of redone a bit, but still it's really cool. Returning to that world is amazing. I like the combat. I know it was kind of, not a lot of people complained about it, but some people did, and I respect it. But I like it. I think it's a cool combat system. I think it's smart. I like it better than 15's combat system. Because it's actiony, but also gives you that chance to take a pause real quick. You know, someone's swinging at you, you're like, whoa, and you hit the, slow down button. You got plenty of time to kind of figure things out. Also allows you to do some interesting things when you're trying to heal everybody and shit's happening too quick. You're like, whoa, hold on. And then you're like, okay, you heal this person, you start healing this person, you do this. And I think it's a really cool system. I think it's a really good middle ground between action and turn-based RPGs.
Yeah.
This game is incredible looking. not just graphically. The graphics, there's games that look better than it, but it like on a graphical level. But it's a very good looking graphical game, especially that PS5 upgrade. That shit's looking fucking good. But design wise, aesthetic wise, it's my fucking nostalgia. Like, but I love looking at this game. The character models are amazing looking, and they're so, even though they're slightly different, they are so authentic feeling. It doesn't feel like I've skipped a beat. Like, I feel like I'm playing Final Fantasy VII. The voice acting accompanied with these characters, I think is good. The world is awesome. It's a very flashy game in its combat, but of course it's a Final Fantasy game. But it looks really good. The cinematics, the way they're done is really good, and they happen all the time. They put a lot of work into this game constantly. There's different cinematics happening. There's crazy set pieces happening. People doing crazy shit on motorcycles and shit. And the old anime nerd in me is just watching this shit going like, oh, this is crazy stuff to watch. But also just the fan of Final Fantasy, seeing the stuff like, being shown in this way now is just so cool. I fucking love it. Story so far where I'm at is following pretty closely to what I remember of the original, although there has been a couple parts that are very extra. They're like, hey, let's go sneak and do this little fun side mission for the main thing. And I'm like, I don't know what this is. Let's go find out. And it's fun. It just kind of builds the characters more.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah. And it's cool because when people were like, wait, this is going to be episodic, they're like, no, hold on. We're not going to use that word anymore. It's not episodic. This is just like a full game. I think they did well on that clarification. I'm playing the game. It feels like a full game. It feels like the original story that's going to be cut up into its own, you could have like the whole story of like Lord of the Rings, but then you set it up as a trilogy. Same thing with this. They're taking the whole thing, setting it up as different games, and I think they've done a good job because this feels like a full ass game.
Yeah.
Like very much so. It feels like a AAA full ass game, and yeah, I got no complaints about the way they're doing it so far. I haven't beaten the game, like I've said already, and yeah, I don't really. I will only gush about this game, so I don't really know where to go with this conversation outside of where I'm at in the game so far. I don't have any complaints really about where it's going. I will see how it goes. I've seen a lot of people after beating the game like love it, but it was interesting after this game had come out and some people started beating it. I started hearing some people go like, I don't know how I feel about it. Nobody was like complaining about it.
Yeah.
I didn't hear one person say they disliked it.
Yeah.
But I heard some people have reactions that I was not expecting. They were like, oh, it was okay. Or like, oh, I liked it, but, or they'd be like, well, I don't know where it's going. And I'm like, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So they're doing something that's unexpected, which I can respect. But at the same time, you got to nail it. If you're going to do that shit, hopefully you got a good plan. And I'm going to trust them because I think they've done a really good job on this game. And like I said, I don't think this game's a cash grab. There's so much work put into it. But yeah, combat's fun. I already kind of touched on that. Seeing these characters. One thing, and we've talked about this before, one thing I love about this game is the characters feel like the way they were in the original game. And if you maybe didn't play the original Final Fantasy VII or it's been a while, that was like pixelated little chubby characters on a screen and like text boxes just going and you're just like reading it and people are just doing little animation stuff going brrr. And playing this game I'm like, yeah, this is that.
Yeah.
Like the stuff I was getting from just that is being translated into these characters that are all talking and walking around in these cinematic ways, and Barrett feels like Barrett, Cloud feels like Cloud, Tifa feels like Tifa.
The one thing I'm going to give him too is like the way Barrett was written in the 90s, obviously doesn't necessarily translate super well now, but they still made him feel like that character with more of like Ted Day's like talking styles.
Well, and he reminds me of Barrett from Advent Children a lot too. I mean, obviously they're the same character, but his energy in Advent Children I think is in this. And obviously that energy couldn't translate the same on the original game because the limitations of what you can do graphically and stuff like that. I mean, they would have to make full-on CGI renders of him doing stuff to translate what we're getting from him now. So, but when I see him, it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, he kind of reminds me of him in Advent Children, which I felt like was a, him in the future after Final Fantasy VII version. So it kind of is another bridge, maybe. The thing though that I'm really happy with is like, I hear Tifa talk. I'm not upset. Cloud. That's one that if you fucked up, I would have been pissed. I wouldn't be able to handle that because I'm like, I love Cloud as a character. I love all the characters, but like, he is the way he is, and if you don't nail that, it would like ruin the whole. It wouldn't ruin the whole game, but it would be really disappointing.
Yeah.
Sephiroth, I can kind of look past a little bit. I'm not happy with the way his voice sounds, but his character model looks fucking fantastic.
I had this conversation with Chris, and I'm not going to talk about his opinion, obviously, but for me, I have an issue because in Japanese, in the multiple versions of him outside of Kingdom Hearts, because I'm not going to include that, even if the voice actor has changed, he still comes off as like this sickly dude, like he's sick in the head, right? And in English, they always try to make him come off like cool, and I hate it.
Cool and like, it's almost like they're using like the voice actors they use for like some kind of pompous rich dude villain.
I don't like it, man.
And that's not Sephiroth. Because Sephiroth's fucking demented. We've talked about it on the channel multiple times, but he's fucking crazy. And like the Japanese voice actors, they typically, whoever's picking those voice actors, find somebody for that vision. That's the original vision.
Yeah.
But then in English, like it comes over here and they're like, "Who's a villain? Well, give him like a Bond villain voice, something like that." It's like, no, that's not his character at all. So it's a misstep for sure, and it's a common one it seems with Sephiroth because every time I hear his voice, I'm never really happy with it. But in this, it's not, the voice actor's not bad. It's just I think a misstep.
Yeah.
Because he does
the
good job fine.
Nothing
but, like,
against
it just
the
doesn't
actor.
fit him.
Bad casting.
When I first started the game and I first heard him talk, I was like, okay, interesting. But everybody else is like, oh wow, they did a good job. They did a good job. I feel like I'm just gonna waste time if I keep talking about this. I really like it a lot.
Yeah.
And when I beat it, I will be curious to see where I'm at because I'm not yet at the point where I'm like, I don't know where they're going with this. Hopefully they don't fuck it up. I'm not there yet. So, I don't think I think of anything else. So let's jump into recommendations. I'll let you start that one.
Okay. So if you like Final Fantasy VII,
Yeah.
I think you're kind of obligated to really try
Probably
it.
played it. If you didn't, if you somehow you're like, wait, there's a remake? Yes.
Yeah.
So it's free on PlayStation Plus. Get it right now.
Square Games, JRPGs. I'd even say Western RPGs because they did definitely try to appeal to both audiences by with the hybrid system that they use. It does remind me a lot of, it's gonna be a weird example, I suppose, but like the Dragon Age games where they're in real time, but if you need a moment, you pause.
Even if for some reason you're somebody who hears the word RPG and you're like, ugh, which it would be weird because almost every game nowadays is in some way influenced by an RPG. Yeah, every game is an RPG nowadays. But
this is an action game.
It's a kind of turn-based, sometimes if you need it, action game. If you like games like it's not Devil May Cry, but if you like a game like Devil May Cry where you're just hacking, slashing through people and shit, you're gonna play this and not go like, oh god, it's an RPG. You're gonna go, okay, I can fucking run around, I can block, I can hit people and shit. So yeah.
And all the characters feel different, which is great. So if you don't like one, like I'm not the biggest fan of playing as Cloud.
I like him, but I kept playing Tifa.
Tifa's way better. She's
feels
more
good.
assaultive.
Yeah.
Cloud's a counter attack person. So
he feels powerful, but I just like I like the way Tifa feels.
She's way better. I've lost my train of thought. JRPGs, Western RPGs, action games, Square Enix games in general. Though I feel like you've already played it at that point if you're a Square Enix fan.
Get Final Fantasy and Square Enix out there. If you're a fan of that and for some reason haven't played this, play it.
Yeah, for sure. And cinematic games, actually, because there's a lot of cinematics in this game.
Yeah.
If you enjoy good music in games.
Metal Gear Solid level cinematics, there's a lot.
There's a lot, yeah.
Which I love.
The music is absolutely amazing. Like, Square games are usually ones I actually buy soundtracks to. That's how much I want to push.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, how good the music is. And if you like games that offer like larger than life scenery, I mean, Midgard is nothing but larger than like reality. Like it's crazy. So
It's very imaginative in its design.
yeah, think Battle Angel would be a good way to word that. Just a little bit different.
Speaking of Battle Angel, I would throw out if you like anime, you might like this
Yeah.
game. If you're just a big anime fan, I'm not saying Final Fantasy VII is an anime, but there are definitely some anime beats there for sure. That are, and a lot of Japanese games, but people with big crazy hair, and the game can be very serious, but also kind of go into this goofy area real quick,
Which I love.
Me too.
Yeah.
I love it because it kind of takes away from serious notes. Which
The breaks
I
are
think is,
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's one thing about like not to get into anime talk, but like Berserk, something it's missing a little bit is sometimes it's just fucking brutal for a while, and you're like, holy
I think
fuck.
Puck fills that role though pretty well. He's a break in
Yeah,
the
later.
yeah.
The original series, it's like all the characters
No,
you
for
really,
sure.
you really like every once in a while they show up, and you're like, oh, please do something that's lighthearted.
Yeah.
But then something bad happens at the end, and you're like, well, fuck me. Anyway, this game's kind of like that. Or
Yeah.
might be eventually. I don't know. Sci-fi. If you like sci-fi games, if you like inventive, creative sci-fi games, something only Final Fantasy does. Final Fantasy does sci-fi like nobody else. And this game showcases that, and it's authentic as fuck to the original one with the weird train robots and shit. I love it so much. I see these things and I'm like, that shit was weird in the 90s, and it's fucking here again, rendered in beautiful graphics.
Fighting a house again was really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, it's awesome. I love that they didn't go like, well, does that make sense in 2020 or where the fuck this game came out? 2020, 2019, I don't remember. They didn't do that. They're like, no, we're making Final Fantasy VII. They did it.
Which thank you, by the way, for not removing things.
If you like quiet, stoic, underappreciated heroes, play this game.
He's a bit of an emo kid, but yeah.
He is. But I always really like characters that are like the unsung hero.
Yeah.
Like Solid Snake, Guts from Berserk. I'm just bringing up shit about Berserk for some reason. But Cloud's not the same, but he is similar in some ways. And that's definitely a pull for me. But that's just me saying I like Final Fantasy VII at this point. So
I think it's pretty much it for recommendations.
yeah, I can't really think of anything to add to that. I mean, I added sci-fi games. It's a sci-fi game, but it's really like
Yeah, it's not high fantasy at all. It's definitely science fiction.
It's like straight sci-fi, and it's nice to revisit nowadays because I don't even know. I just like it. I can't think of a reason.
Final Fantasy really it's been sci-fi for a while now.
Yeah.
Not to go off tangent too much, but 16
this,
will be high fantasy.
This, and I'm very excited about that because I wanted them to go back to that. Because for a while now they've been doing that like metallic, fucking clean Final Fantasy 13 and 15 sci-fi that feels kind of sterile, and returning to Final Fantasy 7, it has this weird grungy, only could have been thought up in the 90s style to it, where people were wearing fucking stomach high pants and shit and have metal bolts in their shoulder, and people are just dressed a certain way, and you're fighting fucking houses and stuff. Like there's just a thing to the style of Final Fantasy 7 that I love, and its sci-fi is so different than so many games. I don't know what else to add. You pretty much nailed it all.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little steampunky. I guess I could throw that in there too.
Yeah. I feel like big epic stories.
Yeah.
This one's not fully realized yet, but if it's gonna follow Final Fantasy VII in any way,
it's big and a little weird.
so if you like things big and a little weird, play Final
Final
Fantasy
Fantasy
VII.
stories in general are like that, though. I mean, Final Fantasy 4, you go to the moon. So
True. Anything else? Okay. Who graded first last time?
I believe I did.
Okay, I'm gonna give this an A that A is pushing against a cap that could turn to an A plus if I beat this and love it, or maybe go down to an A minus if I'm kind of unsure where it's at. But I feel very adamant. A feels very comfortable to me. Given A minus, I feel like is too low for me personally. Where I'm at in the game, I love everything I'm seeing so far. I love playing the game. I love the music. We already gushed about this thing for a while now. It's a fantastic game. Where I'm at and in the game, that could change, but yeah, I just feel really good giving it an A. It's a stellar game.
Yeah. So I don't remember what I graded it during the Game of the Year discussion. I do know that it was my runner-up. I've had time to obviously sit and think about and digest the game a little more at this point. So if my grade has changed, that's probably why.
I don't think you had beaten it yet.
I did right before.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't really have time to really kind of digest it yet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it an A minus because it has put my mental state in a little bit of a weird place.
Disarray.
And funny enough, if the next game comes out and it just justifies the changes in the story, I actually think that would retroactively change the grade of this game. So
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is it sounds like you're kind of stuck in an unknowing area of you don't know how you can feel about it yet. Similar to when I watched the fucking Force Awakens, Star Wars Force Awakens. I was like, what are they doing with this? And then they did that.
then Star Wars happened. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, fuck, okay. So yeah, it's not gonna be that bad, but I understand that kind of intersection. You come to it, and that's the end. You're like, so where are we going?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. That's why I can give it that confident A because I haven't gotten to that point yet. So that might change as soon as I get there.
That being said, I did give it an A range because it is a fantastic game. So
Yeah, I can't imagine giving it a B or anything below.
I can't even. I would feel like bad almost. I think.
Yeah, they put way too much passion and work into it and the things that matter feel authentic outside of where the story could go. Like they nailed everything else. So now it's just kind of like up in the air of like, okay, well, where are you taking us? But outside of that, everything's else is great. So A and A minus. What you got anything else you want to say on that?
I look forward to the future game or games. I'm also curious when the mobile game comes out because it's going to be an active turn-based free-to-play game that's going to play through the entire story of 7, including things like Advent Children and stuff.
Yeah, it's weird.
I'm just looking forward to the future of 7 in general. So that's great. And Final Fantasy right now, 16 is looking amazing. I want
to see more on it.
Huge confidence in the people working on it though, because Final Fantasy 14 is one of my favorite Final Fantasies ever.
It's true.
I think the story, Shadowbringers specifically, rivals every other Final Fantasy. So
crazy, but I've heard it more and more from more and more people. So
and if you like 15's villain, I have a hard time imagining you would think poorly of Shadowbringers villain. So
yeah, that was the magic of 15. Is like at first I'm like, this guy's a fucking dork, and by the end I'm like, holy shit, he's one of the best Final Fantasy villains. What the fuck was that? So I always like being surprised like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we probably talk forever on this. So let us know in the comments what you guys think of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Please try to avoid spoilers, or at least put a spoiler warning if you want to go into the details of that. I don't want it spoiled for me, but I know a lot of other people may still be playing it and don't want it spoiled as well. Yeah. But definitely let us know what you thought of the game. Do you think they hit it, nailed it? Do you think they knocked it out of the park? Do you think they did pretty good, but kind of maybe you're doing some things you're not really into? What do you think about the combat? I know that one was kind of controversial before the game came out. After that, I didn't hear much about it. Are you satisfied with it? Do you like what they did with the characters, the environments? Do you think it feels authentic? I know you love the music. And
otherwise, you don't have ears.
Yeah. If you liked the original music, you like this music most likely. And what do you think about where the story potentially could be going? Are you worried about it? Are you confident? Do you like where it's going? Or are you like, I hate this. What are they doing? Let us know everything you're thinking about in the comments below. That's going to do it for this episode of Plus Club for March. As always, thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this episode. Make sure to check out our other episodes. Check us out on social media, link down below, and also our streams, links down below. We have Discord link down below as well. You can talk to us anytime, all the time. We're on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast platforms if you prefer to listen to us in audio form. And we have a Patreon if you'd like to support the channel further than liking, commenting, sharing this video, and subscribing if you're brand new. Quick reminder that I will be gone this weekend, so Game of the Month will be coming out at like the very end of the month. So like Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah. Maybe Thursday. So that is coming. And Chris will be picking the game of the month for next month and giving us his opinions on what we just talked about. And of course, Among Us, which we will be talking about later. So
Probably
stay
not
tuned.
For an hour and a half, though.
No. 2 games here I had a lot to say on. What we did. Yeah. So stay tuned for that. I should probably stop clicking shit in the mic. And yeah, my name's Seth.
I'm Chevy.
Until next episode, which will be the beginning of next week. Have a good one, guys, and take it easy.